I heard the first day at this conference a lot of discussion, doom and gloom discussion about these technologies would make these technologies obsolete, these technologies would make your jobs completely different, and etc. And it reminded me of something that the author Norman Mailer asked in a book. We do a lot about technology, but we don't say why we do it. So almost technology has become a goal of itself. We'll just replace, we'll just make obsolete to get the latest and the newest. But we rarely step back and take a moment to think why we do this and why we adopt particular technologies and how do they help us. So I changed because of this my presentation and want to tell you much more about our philosophy about business intelligence and approach to managing business intelligence so that you can maximize the benefits of business intelligence in your enterprise. And I would emphasize 7 principles that would help you expand the business intelligence and deliver high ROI and maximum benefits to the end user. So, number 1, when we look from anything that happens in the business world, we look from the perspective of capital. And we have 3 forms of capital now in the enterprise. Investment capital, these are your fixed assets, processes, and operation. And this investment capital is leveraged to deliver products and services. Then we have human capital. These are the employees, talent management, and this capital is managed to deliver good performance. These 2 forms of capital are very well known, and we have over 100 years of management experience with these 2 forms of capital. There are management schools. There are well-established disciplines how to maximize the return on those 2 forms of capital. But there is a 3rd form of capital that's far more important today than probably or is equally important as the other 2, and this is the information capital. These are the systems and the analytics that you apply to the data that's collected, and this capital is used primarily to secure competitive advantage. This discipline, the management of this capital, is an entirely new discipline. We've seen the first MBA programs in business analytics, in business intelligence being opened just a year ago. So there is a lot to be said about that. And we manage these to achieve 3 things. Automation, automate processes, automate the delivery of information. Motivation, use business intelligence and information to motivate employees, and 3rd, use it to motivate. And the reason I'm bringing this, the number 1 thing that would help you tremendously, is to change the focal point. BI has been, up until now, perceived as a cost center, the cost of delivering reports. It's an entirely different perspective when BI is perceived as an investment center when you're actually contributing equally to the revenues and the growth of the company. And this is the number 1 request I see from CIO coming and saying, how can I elevate the importance of business intelligence to the C-level so that I can get the appropriate funding and the appropriate support from the C-level for my initiatives? The only way you would do it is by treating business intelligence as an investment capital and measuring strictly the return on it. So let's look at the leverage of it and what we've done up until in BI. So BI, we distinguish now traditional BI with what's emerging BI. And we look at the organizational layers because at the end of the day, BI is there to optimize the flow of information in the enterprise. So we look at the executive level and the mid-management level and the analysts who are the traditional users, the top 10% of users in the BI systems. And they use BI to analyze, optimize, and formulate a policy and a strategy through the enterprise. But in effect, all of this research, this policy formulation, and etc., is done for one goal, and that's to drive performance in the operational employees. Unless the policies change the behavior of the operational employees, there's something that stays behind the walls of the C-level and nothing penetrates down and nothing improves the performance. So what we're seeing now, that BI, the emerging BI, is used to drive numbers and metrics to the operational employees in order to change their performance. And once you do this, then you're beginning to see a real ROI on your investments in information capital, because you are improving the performance across the entire organization, not just the top 10% who have insights, but the rest, the operational layer that actually delivers the actual results in the field. And something even more important, getting the information out there, not just to employees, but to your partners and suppliers. These are critical for your operations because this is all the revenue generated is in this layer, the partners, the customers, and the suppliers. And by delivering numbers, by creating transparency to this layer, you're actually going to get loyalty and growth. And this is where we see an extreme ROI being delivered by the business intelligence system. So going to those two layers, historically, who have done that, the two people that first delivered numbers to operational employee are Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, who was at some point the richest person in the world. He did it sporadically. He used to go in the steel mills and write a number on the wall, so the next shift of steel workers can beat this very number. Jack Welch, the #1 CEO in the States, has done this systematically by building the information systems that deliver numbers to every employee on the production line so they can improve the quality, monitor the quality, and get to the 99.9% defect-free rate. And we've seen also another enterprise that actually did it on the partner, on the extended enterprise layer, and that's Walmart. They opened their systems, information systems, to their partners and suppliers. And we've seen the dramatic effect of the growth of Walmart because of optimizing their entire supply chain by bringing their partners and suppliers within their own transparency system. So again, the point here is that your leverage from your investments in business intelligence would come when you distribute this information, not to the 100 analysts, not to the top 10% in your enterprise, but when you push these vital numbers to employees, suppliers, and partners. This is the end goal, because this is going to change behavior and deliver results. So leverage is achieved on those two layers. Number 3, you need to understand, as you start doing this dramatic change and pushing information and getting more and more transparency to more and more people in the enterprise, you're going to see a lot of inhibitors, a lot of things that would prevent you to succeed. And at the top level, there are business inhibitors, leadership, politics, and culture. These are the top 3 that come there: lack of ownership, lack of support, lack of understanding, a culture that is resistant to being managed by the numbers and being accountable to what they deliver in terms of numbers. So this is a very serious, this is where I said a cultural change. Once you start affecting the behavior of the employees and drive them to deliver higher results, you're going to see political and cultural resistance that needs to be overcome. There are also technology inhibitors, and that's the access to data. Very frequently, the reason for not implementing something is we don't have access to it, or the access is not well integrated, is sporadic, so the numbers are different. The second one is the lack of trust in the data. Many systems fail for that. Excel has become very popular because when we don't trust the data, we put it in Excel and we manually change it. So we try to provide our own corrections to the data in Excel. That's a false trust, but nevertheless, that's what people do out of necessity. And finally, user adoption. The BI system needs to be simple enough, user-friendly enough, so that people can adopt it. You cannot give a difficult tool to an end user and expect them to easily adopt and use it in their daily operations. So, again, these 3 inhibitors, they can be resolved, and I'll move to 4. These are the technology enablers that would help you get through these layers. Number 1 is the data integration technologies. They solve actually the accessibility of information. So the more you leverage the integrated technologies, the more people can join different sources of data, and etc., the more they get a full picture of what's going in the enterprise, and the less they're resistant because of obstacles to get information. So one of the biggest questions I see when reports are presented, people say, yeah, but that comes from a single source. So we need to see beyond that and find the additional information and correlate it with this data source so we can get the full picture. The second technology is a set of technology, actually data governance and data quality technologies. And those are there to ensure that the data is trusted. Is the customer complaint made by a customer and the customer name and address in the complaint system the same as the one in the system that is there for revenue generation? Can we correlate this? My wife had a problem with airplanes because her name in one system was differently spelled than the name on the passport. So every time she goes, they need to verify, and it takes her 45 minutes to check in. And it has taken a company to manually intervene 6 months to correlate these two different spellings of her name. That's an incredibly frustrating experience for a frequent flyer person. So again, the trust is very important, and it doesn't affect only your internal employees. It affects also your customers and how they perceive the organization. And finally, coming down to the intelligence, the user adoption, are the reports, the insights that we get from these systems. Are they relevant to what I do in my job? If they're not relevant, if they're not trustworthy, if they're hard to get, there is not going to be much adoption. So these technologies are setting the conditions for the adoption and the maximization of your investments in business intelligence. Number 5. So the enterprise actually should adopt the philosophy that everyone makes decisions. This is practically the most resistant point when business intelligence is being starting to being deployed. I actually heard a couple of people saying, my pilot project is for the 100 analysts. And I often give the example that when you are in the surgical room operation, very often the physician, the surgeon actually turns to the nurse and asks her for advice what to do on particular procedures. On the other hand, when we build systems for medical workers, we first focus on the surgeon and we rarely think about the nurse and what information the nurse needs, even though the nurse is the person who very often provides the data that the surgeon needs while they're on the operating table. So again, that's a shift of the focal point, that's a cultural change that is very important. Once we as an enterprise adopt that everyone makes decisions, then we would build the systems and provide the reports that everyone in the chain needs. So segment, we talk a lot in marketing about segmentation. If you're working for a retailer, you would know that segmentation is the key to maximizing customer revenues. But we never did this for the BI users. We never segmented them based on roles, skills, and attitudes to determine who needs what and what technologies and what information will deliver to every user. So as you can see here, the spectrum is very wide. From IT developers, power users, and business analysts, to operational employees, business partners, and customers. And traditional BI has actually focused primarily on the 4 users here, on this category of groups. Let's deliver the information to them, hoping that magically, through the grapevine, these people would spread the insights and information to the other employees. So I refer to this as managing by PowerPoint. Because what happens is the analysts create a very detailed analysis of something, and they formulate a policy on it, and then they distribute this and announce it with memos and PowerPoints and etc. to the operational employees. But until the operational employees see the incoming numbers on a regular basis of their performance, the whole change, the whole policy remains a PowerPoint and is not proactively acted on. So that's the danger. So this is really the difference, that we focus in traditional BI on this layer and we pretty much ignore this layer up until now. And what we're saying that from a maximization point of view is that the growth and revenue opportunities for BI are really in this layer.